Hi there people, how you doing? So, today it is time to see if the OnePlus 9 Pro with, the Hasselblad cameras and your color science, the brand new sensors and everything, it is time to see how well it stacks up compared to Apple's best at this moment. And well, I do have the iPhone 12 with me, but I will be pointing out certain areas where the 12 Pro or Pro Max could have done a slightly better job. We already know what they can be good at, so let's get into this right away. So first image right here, and immediately we can see that the OnePlus 9 Pro is taking an upper hand already. The shadow detail is just delicious, and the iPhone, well, it's a tendency I've seen in daylight images. It really wants to crush shadows. Nonetheless, the OnePlus 9 Pro takes a win here. Here's another backlit shot, and this time it would appear that the iPhone 12 is doing a better job. Just check out how well the sun's highlights are contained. Like, it looks tremendously good on the iPhone. And as a bonus almost, the iPhone also has better shadow detail. You can see a lot more color in the leaves and everything, It looks really nice on the iPhone this time around. Alright, our final dynamic range test. Whichever wins takes the cake here. Just check out those shadow details once again. Especially in like the lower part of the image, there's just so much more color, so much more details available in the shadows that the iPhone, it doesn't even come close at this point. Now, I'm not entirely sure why the iPhone's doing this, but I really wish the Smart HDR would kick in more often, because it appears that when it doesn't, you get images like these. Anyways, let us move on to the ultrawide cameras now. This is where, by the way, the OnePlus 9 Pro packs some serious punch. You'll see why. So here, I would say both are doing a pretty good job. The details on the OnePlus 9 Pro are definitely just slightly better, but definitely better. And as for colors, I think the iPhone 12 is slightly desaturated, but closer to the natural, most realistic look, while the OnePlus 9 is slightly exaggerating it, but I do like the look on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Dynamic range, however, is where the OnePlus 9 Pro is really taking the lead, because if you look at the sky, there's quite a bit more highlights contained there. Now, how about zoom? Well, the OnePlus 9 Pro has 3.3 times optical zoom. That is what you're looking at here. The iPhone 12 doesn't have any optical zoom. Now, the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max, they do have 2 and 2.5 times zoom, but to be honest, I don't think they were really worth it, because in India at least, the 12 Pro and Pro Max cost around like $400 to $500 more than the OnePlus 9 Pro for some weird reason that I'm not aware of, really. Like, that's the case with iPhones in general. They just cost way too much money in India. Now, if you don't live in India and you don't have this price problem, then yeah, those phones are great. But I would say in India, the iPhone 12 strikes a good balance, but you will be losing out on optical zoom here. Now, let us try some high-res shots, because there's quite a few options on the OnePlus 9 Pro. None of the iPhones have any high-res modes, just so you know. So this is 48 megapixels with the main camera, and well, just forget about the resolution and the details. Just look at the dynamic range. It's insane how much shadow detail is visible on the OnePlus 9 Pro. The iPhone 12, just like many of the previous images, just isn't doing that good a job, now is it? It's just completely crushing those shadows. There's no color, nothing. The OnePlus 9 Pro, regardless of the details, which are obviously much better on the OnePlus 9 Pro, just so you know, it's obviously going to take a win here. Now, we can take 50 freaking megapixel images with the ultrawide camera on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Once again, none of the iPhones have any such capabilities, and to be honest, well, the detail difference isn't tremendous. Like, the iPhone 12's processing itself takes care of a lot of that, but yeah, the dynamic range, once again, like, take a look at the shadows, like in the leaves on the upper part of the image. Definitely better on the OnePlus 9 Pro. It's not as big a difference as the previous image, but a difference nonetheless. I think, once again, we should definitely award a win to the OnePlus 9 Pro, man. The OnePlus is on a roll. That is, until we get to this image. Well, I personally have no idea what the OnePlus 9 Pro has against these kinds of backlit images, but check out all of that crazy artifacting. It's like the processing completely messed up, and it happens in this particular situation a lot. I've never seen this happen anywhere else, like in daylight images and all that. It's fine. So I don't know what exactly is wrong here. Now we can actually fix that by just using tap to expose on the subject, which is exactly what I did, and it worked out just fine. Every single time I used tap to expose, it didn't give me any of the nasty artifacting. So, you know, I'm at least glad that we have a solution to the weird problem that we have here on the OnePlus. However, because of the lower contrast on the iPhone, it actually looks better in this particular situation at least. I think it looks a lot better than the OnePlus, especially like in the shadow details. Even the sharpness is quite a bit better on the iPhone 12. We have a similar story on the ultrawide camera. You can see a bunch of artifacting on the OnePlus. I'm not sure why it even happens, and at this point, it even happens on the OnePlus 8 Pro. I've already done the comparison, that's where I first noticed it. But again, tap to expose is gonna fix the problem, at least it did for me. So if you're encountering this, then well, tap to expose is your only way out, as far as I know. So, the iPhone 12, well, it's kind of messing up the white balance. I think it's a bit too warm. And secondly, the highlight control this time around is much better on the OnePlus 9 Pro. As you can see, it is controlling the highlight a little bit more. So yeah, overall I like the OnePlus 9 Pro's image, but you know, the issues are just insane. Here's another ultrawide, and well, this time it's more of a medium to low light situation with only one major highlight to control. It is a pretty dim light, just so you know, but yeah, the iPhone 12 is definitely doing a better job. It isn't controlling the highlight as much as the OnePlus 9 Pro, but everything else about the image, the overall details, the colors, and obviously the shadow detail is just so much better. I think the iPhone deserves a massive win here. Now this one here, well, I want to see which one of these would be able to balance out the image. I would say the iPhone is really leaning towards the cooler tones a bit too much in my opinion. I mean, there was supposed to be a little bit warmth. The OnePlus 9 Pro, however, it's really exaggerating that warmth that I just talked about. Even the colors are really exaggerated, and because of deep fusion on the iPhone and given the lighting conditions, well, we do have much better overall details in the textures and everything. It looks really nice on the iPhone. That is until you use night mode on the OnePlus 9 Pro. On the iPhone, because it turns on automatically and the lighting clearly wasn't low enough, well, you can't really do that. The OnePlus at this moment is actually producing a much better image because the details are better, the colors are slightly more vibrant, but it's still very nice. The warmth is now very well balanced in my opinion. So overall, I like the OnePlus 9 Pro's image with night mode a lot better than the iPhone. Now, macro mode on the OnePlus 9 Pro. I've always been a fan of how they do it. It's very high quality and we can't really get as close as we could last year, but you know, it's still fantastic. The iPhone 12 obviously cannot do anything about that, now can it? The phone you're looking at, however, is the Vivo X60 Pro Plus. It's here, and that's actually the gimbal stabilization system that's built into the ultrawide camera of that phone. So yeah, the camera comparisons for that phone are gonna come out soon enough. Do stay tuned. But for now, let us move on to portraits. Well, in this case, I would say I like the skin tones on the iPhone quite a bit more, but the lower contrast, it's really making my shirt look very grey and kind of dull. But on the OnePlus 9 Pro, this contrast is much better in my opinion, so overall, I would consider this kind of a tie, but if I had to pick one, I would go with the iPhone probably, because better skin tones are kind of more important in this case, I think. Now this here is a zoomed in portrait, that too in medium lighting conditions, so this is more of the indoors lighting that you usually have, not the good studio lighting that we had before. It's not particularly high quality because it's mostly digital zoom if I'm not wrong. So yeah, overall I would suggest not using the zoomed in portraits unless you're really required to do it. Zooming out, however, well, here it seems like the OnePlus 9 Pro is completely underexposing the image. It's not bad. I mean, the edge detection, the overall colors are pretty good. But yeah, the iPhone 12 is definitely still doing a better job. I think the lower contrast is actually playing in the iPhone's favor this time around. How about a portrait of Valentine? As you can see, there's a lot going on here. It's almost like an understatement, to be entirely honest. Even Valentine is kind of perplexed by why so many cameras are pointed around. But anyways, overall I would say, once again the iPhone is doing a slightly better job. It appears that just like the iPhone was kind of crushing shadows in daylight images, the OnePlus 9 Pro does the same, and it crushes shadows in portraits. That's a very interesting find right here. Now as for selfies, well, here at least, there's a lot of light and a lot of contrast that both of these phones have to handle. And well, as you'd expect, the iPhone 12 has a lower contrast, and I kinda like the skin tones on the iPhone. The OnePlus 9 Pro isn't doing a bad job though. It's really nice. It does have this signature high contrast look, and it is also handling the highlights quite nicely. So yeah, overall, other than the skin tones, I think this is definitely a tie. Now for a portrait selfie of Valentine in medium lighting, and well, I'm also there, but nonetheless, well, I would say the OnePlus 9 Pro definitely looks better overall with like the skin tones. It has a little bit more color. The iPhone 12 is just making Valentine look washed out, and you know that. We cannot have something like that happening now, can we? So yeah, overall I like the OnePlus better, but I gotta point this out. Just check out that blue in the background. It looks so like exaggerated and just weird on the OnePlus 9 Pro. The iPhone 12 is at least doing a better job of maintaining the natural color of the blue wall. But other than that, the OnePlus 9 Pro definitely takes a win. Now for another portrait selfie, but this time in the high contrast situation that we saw before. So once again, you know, it's overall very similar, but the iPhone 12 has low contrast. It has slightly better skin tones in my opinion, but the OnePlus isn't doing very bad either. So again, other than skin tones, it's essentially a tie. Low light selfies, however, is a place where, you know, you could say that the iPhone 12 takes a win. To be honest, night mode selfies on the iPhone 12 is horrible. As you can see, there are so many other cameras out there with amazing night mode selfies. The S21 Ultra, for example, is like miles ahead of the iPhone 12 when it comes to night mode selfies as a whole. The OnePlus 9 Pro, unfortunately, doesn't have night mode selfies, so, you know, again, something that doesn't have the feature, obviously the iPhone 12 is gonna look better, but to be honest, I would never in my wildest dreams use that image. Anyways, let us move on to rear camera night modes. This is with the main camera, and well, both are obviously doing a pretty good job. There's a lot of detail, noise is minimal, but the colors on the OnePlus 9 Pro, they are a bit on the crazy side if you ask me. Now the iPhone has a bit more magenta, like you can see the sky looks kind of purple, while the OnePlus 9 Pro looks like it's really blue. I like the iPhone a little bit more because it's a bit more subdued in my opinion, like the leaves and everything, it has a more natural tone to it. So yeah, overall colors are better on the iPhone, but other than that, to be honest, in this image at least, both are doing a really good job. Now in this shot here, well, there are a lot of highlights to control and obviously the sky and the shadows to expose, a lot of things going on here. So overall, I like the OnePlus 9 Pro better. It is giving us all the details in the sky with the clouds and everything, but it is maintaining the darkness as well. The iPhone 12, I think it's overexposing the sky especially, and the highlights are also not as well controlled as on the OnePlus 9 Pro. So overall, I like the OnePlus 9 Pro here. And the blue in the sky, it's not as bad as before, but it's definitely present. Now, ultra wide night mode, as you can see, this isn't a particularly easy situation. There's signbows, there's a lot of red light bleeding out, and well, to be honest, the iPhone 12 has terrible ultrawide night mode. It's been the case since it launched, and it's the same case here. The OnePlus 9 Pro has much better ultrawide night mode. Like, yeah, the colors, I would say overall very similar in this case, but other than that, the details, the overall noise reduction, everything is so much better on the OnePlus 9 Pro. I'll show you a zoomed in shot in another ultrawide night mode image that I took later on. Now here's a final outdoors night mode. The reason I took this is just to show off how much lens reflection is present on the iPhone 12. All those extra white lines that you can see in the sky on the iPhone that are not present on the OnePlus 9, well, those are the reflections and they don't exactly look nice, now do they? Even the highlights are not nearly as well controlled as on the OnePlus 9 Pro. The sky as well looks a lot better on the OnePlus 9 Pro, so yeah, easy win for the OnePlus here. Now how about some ultra low light, that too in some very tricky lighting situation. The OnePlus 9 Pro here is actually more accurate in terms of the lighting. It's how I wanted it to look. And the iPhone, it's actually slightly desaturated and it's really like trying to warm it up, which is why it looks slightly washed out in my opinion. Overall, I would say the OnePlus 9 Pro is a little bit more accurate as well. Details and noise reduction, however, because of how low the light was, it's better on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Now, the iPhone 12 Pro Max with a larger sensor could probably do a better job here, so that's something to keep in mind. But overall, the OnePlus 9 Pro does take a win. Not just because of that, but check out the highlights as well. That's also much better controlled on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Now here's another ultra-wide night mode shot, not in particularly bad lighting, but it's still quite low light. So let's zoom in and you'll know exactly why I don't like the iPhone 12's ultra-wide night mode. Man, just take a look at all of that overprocessing that's going on. There's so much over sharpening and artifacts, and it's not like the sharpness is actually bringing out more detail. Like the textures and everything, it's much better preserved on the OnePlus 9 Pro. It looks so much more detailed. And as for the overall noise, it's obviously much more present on the iPhone 12, and the OnePlus 9 Pro's image looks very organic, and I really like the processing on the OnePlus here. So that is it for the camera comparison, and well, I gotta say, for the most part, I think the OnePlus 9 Pro definitely did a better job. Consider daylight images, so much better dynamic range in so many situations. Yes, when in that one image the iPhone 12's HDR really kicked in, yeah, it did a slightly better job than the OnePlus 9 Pro. I do want to give credit where it's due to the iPhone 12, but to be honest, it happened only once in numerous images. So even in like the high-res shots, you saw how the iPhone just completely crushed the shadows, while the OnePlus consistently did a better job. On the portraits, however, I still think OnePlus needs some work to be done. Like the skin tones, the iPhone still produces slightly better, more accurate skin tones overall. The contrast, in my opinion, sometimes is too much, such that the shadows can be really crushed on the OnePlus. As for selfies, well, I would say that for the most part, it's not bad. But let's face it, I think the iPhone 12 still takes a win for selfies as a whole. Once again, because it has slightly lower contrast, it has a wider field of view, and overall, it just looks better in my opinion. So, like human subjects, portraits, selfies, in that regard, I think OnePlus still needs to do some work. Other than that, it's really impressive how well the OnePlus 9 Pro stacks up against the iPhone 12. It's a really incredible camera system that we have here, especially with the ultra-wide cameras. In night mode and everything, it blew the iPhone 12 into the dust. It's like the iPhone 12 never even had proper night mode, with the ultrawide that is. So yeah, overall, the OnePlus 9 Pro, in my opinion, in photography, definitely takes a win here. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be seeing you guys later. Cheers.